war zone was quiet, but not calm. Two massive armies stood face to face in the red dust of planet Drexen-4. Drones hovered above, plasma tanks hummed low. Soldiers with glowing visors and AI-linked rifles waited for the command. On one side stood the alien forces, the elite Vorten Guard. They wore black battle armor that could stop energy blasts. They had cybernetic implants. Their rifles were smarter than most humans. For them, this fight was just another win. On the other side stood Earth's unit, smaller, less flashy. No glowing weapons, no flying mechs. It's just human soldiers, standing, tall and silent. And then she walked in. She came from the back, slow but sure, a lone figure. The Vortons turned their heads. Even some humans looked confused. She didn't wear powered armor. No drones followed her. No glowing lines ran down her arms. She wore a simple gray coat, dusty boots, and a belt with metal bullets. In her hands was a weapon, long dark, made of wood and steel. Old, very old. A bolt-action rifle. One of the Vorten captains laughed out loud. "Is this a joke?" said. Voice echoing through the comlink. "Is that a museum piece? She going to fight us with a stick?" His laughter spread to the rest of his troops. Jokes followed. She brought a toy. One shouted, "Maybe she thinks we're hunting." "Birds," another said. The humans said nothing. Not even Reyna. Her name was Captain Reyna Holt, and she didn't care what they thought. She stepped into the dust of the battlefield, calmly loading her weapon by hand. Each click echoed too loud in the silence that followed the laughter. Click, 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 3. Bullets, no more. The Vortons laughed harder until the first shot was fired. Crack. It wasn't like the buzzing sound of plasma. It was raw, loud, sharp. It echoed off the cliffs and made even the human soldiers flinch. One of the Vorten, elite armored from head to toe, dropped, not pushed, not wounded. Dead. A perfect hole was burned through the center of his head. The laughter stopped. Silence. Then came panic. "That was kinetic," one Vorten officer said, checking his scanner. There was no energy signature, no heat trail. Another shouted, "Where's the projectile? Where's the bullet?" Reyna didn't speak. Just pulled the bolt back. Click dash clack. She loaded again. Crack. Another soldier fell. Same result. Perfect shot. Klin killed. Now the Vortons moved behind cover. "She's using physical ammo," one soldier yelled. "Old tech, our sensors can't read it." Someone else shouted, "It's not even guided. No targeting chip. Just ... aim and shoot." It was true. Reyna's rifle had no digital systems. No AI help. No tracking. Just steel and skill. The Vortons began to shoot back. Plasma bolts flew across the field. They hit the dust, the rocks. Airbutt never touched her. She was too fast, too calm, too human. The third shot came just as fast as the others. Crack. Commander was down. Then Reyna turned, walked back to her own line, and vanished behind the dust. In only 20 seconds, she had fired 3 bullets, 3 dead. All wearing the most advanced armor in the galaxy. The battlefield remained quiet. The Vorten general, Commander Rahl, stepped forward. His golden armor shimmered in the light. His eyes black and wide-narrowed. "What is this? How can an old weapon kill our best?" he growled. A Vorten tech officer replied, "Sir, we don't understand it. The weapon has no electronics, no heat source, no signal. Our shields didn't even register it." And the human, Rahl asked, "She's not on any of our watch lists. No cybernetics. No battle record in our archives." Commander Rahl clenched his fists. "Then add her name and find out what Earth just sent us." Back at the human base, Reyna sat alone. Her rifle was on the table, clean, silent, deadly. A young soldier, Private Lean, approached her. He was shaking slightly, "Ma'am, that was..." He paused, not sure what to say. They laughed. But they're not laughing now. Reyna didn't smile. She never smiled before a war. She simply said, "That's the problem with the galaxy. They think loud weapons mean power. They forgot fear can be quiet. Private Lean sat down across from her. That weapon? Is it really that old? Kinda. Nodded. Over 400 years, passed down through my family. It never needed upgrades. But how did it get through their shields? Reyna looked at him because those shields were built for energy. Light, plasma, lasers. She tapped the wooden stock of her rifle gently. This fires matter. Heavy. Fast. With purpose. Lean blinked. So, it's not a museum piece. Reyna finally smiled just a little. No, Private. It's a reminder. Far across the battlefield, the Vorten warship received a private signal from Earth. It was a simple message, just 6 words. She has more bullets than you. Commander Roll crushed the datapad in his hand. Hours later, the story spread through the galaxy. The human who killed elite Vortens with an ancient weapon. The rifle with no lights, no codes, no software, just death. Some laughed nervously. Others felt fear crawl into their minds. A senator from the Rinkai Empire whispered to her guards, "If humans can win with old weapons, what are they hiding in their vaults?" Back in the human fleet HQ, General Pierce watched the battle footage. Again and again, when asked why he sent Reyna Holt with that weapon, he replied simply, "Because we needed the galaxy to remember that humans don't always evolve forward. Sometimes we evolve backward into something you can't predict." The next day, the Vortens requested a temporary ceasefire. They said it was for diplomatic review. But every soldier knew the truth. They just didn't want to face her again. The battlefield still smelled like smoke and fear. 3 bodies lay in the red dust Vorten elites, armored with the best protection in the galaxy. Each had fallen with a single shot. No burns, no plasma wounds. Just a small, perfect hole. In silence, no one expected it. No one understood it. And no one, especially not the Vortens, could accept it. Commander Roll stood near the fallen soldiers. His black eyes scanned the dust. His mouth stayed shut, but his jaw was tight with anger. "How?" he said at last. "How did an old Earth rifle destroy my best men?" The answer didn't come from any officer. Instead, one of the Vorten engineers finally stepped forward, holding a small scanner. The display was flashing red. "Sir," the engineer said, voice shaky, "we picked up nothing. No plasma, no energy, no digital trail, just velocity." "Explain," Raul growled. The engineer swallowed hard. She fired. Metal. Heavy. Dense, high-speed metal. Straight through the shields. Tore through the armor like paper. Raul clenched his fists. "But our shields block everything." "No, sir," the engineer said carefully. "They block energy. Light. Plasma. Lasers. But not pure matter. Not at that speed." Commander Roll stared down at the cracked helmet of one of his fallen men. "Then our shields are lies," said coldly. Meanwhile, back at the human base, Reyna was cleaning her rifle again. Her hands moved slowly. Each motion showed experience. Control. Calm. A small group of young Earth soldiers stood nearby, whispering. "She only fired 3 times, one said. "Yeah, 3 bullets, 3 kills. "That's scary," said another. "And she wasn't even sweating." General Pierce entered the room. "Captain Holt," he said firmly. She stood up. "Sir." He looked at the rifle in her hands. "The Vortens want to cease fire, just for 24 hours. She raised an eyebrow, afraid. Pierce nodded. Terrified, Reyna set the rifle down. They called it a museum piece. Pierce looked her in the eyes. Now they call it a threat. In a hidden war chamber on the Vorton ship, top scientists worked around the clock. They laid out the fragments of the bullet recovered from the fallen commander's body. It wasn't glowing. It didn't hum with energy. It didn't pulse or react to scans. It was just metal. But that was the problem. "This isn't a bullet," one scientist whispered. "It's a message," another asked. "What kind of weapon has no smart systems, no AI, and still kills like this?" They studied it again. It was uranium tungsten alloy, hardened, shaped for air resistance. It was ancient. But it had been. Fired with force they couldn't match. She used muscle, one said. No, another corrected, eyes wide. She used gunpowder. A long silence followed. Commander Rao entered the lab. The scientists froze. Speak, he ordered. Sir, one of them said quietly, they beat our shields with physics. With raw force, their weapon doesn't need to think. It only needs to move fast enough. Rawl's voice was low and deadly. Then upgrade the shields. A third scientist stepped forward. No upgrade can block a bullet like this. Not without making the shield a solid wall. Rawl narrowed his eyes. Then make a wall. On the human side, news of Reyna's 3 shots traveled fast, across the galaxy. Even neutral species talked about the strange human weapon. On Rear Prime, alien. Broadcasters argued live. It was luck. No, it was skill. She cheated. She didn't even need tech. In bars, on ships, in command rooms, everyone was saying the same thing. What else are the humans hiding? Reyna sat with Private Lean that night. The stars above were quiet. The battlefield rested for now. You're not scared? Lean asked. No, but they're bringing in more weapons. I heard their next unit has railguns, shoulder drones, heat seekers. Reyna shrugged. More noise. Same fear. Lean looked at her with wonder. You really think your rifle can stop them all? Reyna glanced at the weapon beside her. This, she said, it's just a tool, the real weapon. Lean stared at the stars. Most people need targeting A is to hit something. Reyna looked ahead, eyes sharp. That's the difference. I don't aim with machines. I aim with purpose. Commander Roll didn't sleep. He stood before his full army, hundreds of soldiers. This time they wore extra shielding. Their AI systems were tuned to pick up even dust movement. He addressed them with a deep, booming voice. That human will not win again. She has no drones, no backup, no tech. She's just one soldier. The troops roared. He nodded once. This time no one dies. But deep inside, he wasn't so sure. The ceasefire ended. Dust blew softly across the field as dawn came to Dr. Exxon dash for Reyna. Stepped out again. Same coat, same boots, same rifle. The Vorten side looked stronger, bigger, louder, and yet more cautious. They had seen what one bullet could do. Now they wondered what the fourth one might bring. Reyna didn't run. She didn't hide. She stood in plain sight, and then she did something strange. She lifted the rifle and held it in the air. It wasn't a threat. It was a warning, and the galaxy was watching. The battlefield was quiet again, but it wasn't peace. It was fear. The kind of fear that stays even when nothing moves. The kind that spreads slowly like cold wind through steel bones. Reyna Holt stood alone. Her coat moved gently in the breeze. Her boots left light prints in the red dust. Her rifle long, silent, deadly rested in her arms. No AI linked to it. No targeting display. No smart chip. No software at all. Just wood, steel, and the hands of a human who knew how to kill. Across the field, Commander Roll watched through his helmet visor. His soldiers were ready, but not eager. They had advanced suits, drones, and power armor, but none of them volunteered to go first. RL pointed to a squad of 10. Advance. Capture her alive. The soldiers hesitated for just 1 second. That was enough for Reyna to see it. She raised her rifle slowly. No rush. She didn't need it. The Vorten drone scanned her. No heat trail, no targeting lock, no power surge, nothing. So their systems told them she was harmless. They moved forward. Reyna took aim. She didn't blink. Crack. One soldier dropped. The bullet didn't just hit, broke the armor open like it was paper. The squad stopped. Move, Ral shouted. The rest ran, forming a wide circle. Reyna moved the bolt. Click, dash, clack. Another round in place. Crack. Second soldier down. No warning. No sound before impact. The drones tried to calculate her angle. They failed. She's not using a scope. One Vorten officer gasped. She's aiming by. In the human command post, General Pierce was watching live footage. His officers stared in disbelief. She's fighting like it's the 1900s, one whispered. She doesn't need cover. She is the cover, another said. Pierce said nothing. He just nodded. He already knew. This wasn't about the weapon. This was about her. The third. Vorten soldier tried to use a personal shield. It was calibrated to energy. Reyna didn't care. Crack. Da-da-da. Bullet passed through it. Shield failed. Armor cracked. Target down. The squad broke. They didn't run toward her anymore. They ran away. Commander Roll screamed into his cums. She's one human. One, why are you retreating? But the soldiers were not listening. They were afraid. A young Vorten lieutenant stared at the battlefield. Sir. He whispered to Rawl, her weapon. It doesn't speak to machines. It only speaks to death, Rawl growled. Then we stop. Trying to read it, we destroy it. Back at the human side, Private Lean watched from a hill. He held his modern pulse rifle. Fully digital. Fully automatic? He'd never even touched a bolt action before. He whispered to the soldier beside him. That thing she's holding? It doesn't miss, does it? The soldier shook his head. It's not the rifle, it's her hands. Reyna's face was calm, not angry. Yeah, proud. Just still, she wasn't enjoying this, but she wasn't regretting it. Either her job wasn't to scare. Her job was to remind. The Vortens thought humans were soft now, dependent on machines. Trained by simulations, they were wrong. Humans still had muscle memory. They still had instinct. They still had the ability to aim, fire, and kill without a single AI whispering in their ear. The Vortans launched 2 heat-seeking missiles from across the field. The missiles raced toward her. She didn't run. She dove sideways into a trench at the last second. The missiles hit rock. Boom. Smoke rose. For a moment, it looked like she was gone. Commander Rawl's eyes lit up. Target eliminated. A voice from the scanner team replied, No, sir. She's still alive. The smoke cleared. Reyna stood. Again, she was brushing dust off her coat and loading another bullet. Click-dash-clack. At this point, the galaxy was watching every news feed. Every military command room, across 1,000 planets, the image was the same. A lone human, an old weapon, growing pile of enemy bodies. One Ilveron tactician spoke on live broadcast. This shouldn't be happening. A non-digital weapon has no place on today's battlefield. A human commentator smiled. That's because you forgot where war really begins. It begins in the mind. And she never gave hers away to a machine. Reyna took down the 4th soldier, then the 5th, then the 6th. By the time she reloaded for the 7th time, the entire Vorten front line was pulling back. They didn't know how to explain it. Their systems couldn't predict her. Her tech couldn't track her. Her fear couldn't stop growing. Commander Roll gave the final order. Deploy the walkers. Massive armored machine 6-leg tanks stomped across. The field each had thick plating. Missile pods. Auto-dash. Targeting. They didn't see her as a threat. She wasn't glowing. She wasn't moving fast. Just standing. Waiting. One walker locked on. Target acquired, said its AI. Reyna didn't move. The walker fired a burst of plasma. She rolled forward, dropped to one knee, and aimed upward. Crack. The bullet passed through the smallest joint between the armor. Plates. One perfect shot. The walker staggered and then exploded. That was the moment that Vorten soldiers began to disobey. No more, one shouted. I won't die for pride, said another. Rawl roared into the cums. Return to position. You are soldiers of the Vorton Empire. But none returned, and none stood up. Reyna walked back to her side. No one followed, no one chased, and no one dared call her weapon a museum. Peace again. The red dust had settled. The battlefield was not silent this time. It was tense, like something might break at any moment. The Vorten army was no longer standing in perfect formation. Their lines had gaps. Their steps were slow. Their eyes, behind their high-tech visors, were unsure. Across from them stood one. Human, just one. Captain Raina Holt. She didn't have a helmet. She didn't carry explosives. She didn't shout orders. She only had her old rifle, and every time she raised it, someone died. The commanders of the Vorton forces had to meet again. Deep inside a steel bunker, protected by layers of energy fields, they sat around a glowing table. Their faces were hard, their armor still shining. But their pride, it was fading. "She's killed 11 soldiers," one of them said.
"How with?"
11 bullets, and one walker added another. "By shooting at the knee joint." From 400 meters away, a third whispered, "Without a targeting system?" The room went silent. Finally, Commander Roll spoke. "It's one human with an antique weapon. Hey, this is not possible." "But it is happening," someone replied. Meanwhile, Raina sat beside her rifle under the low shadow of a rock. She wasn't resting. She was waiting. Her ears were trained to hear footsteps before sensors picked them up. Her eyes spotted movement faster than any drone. Her heartbeat was steady, slower than normal. Focus Private Lean stood near her again, this time with a fresh water bottle. "You're not even tired," he said. How she took the bottle, drank once, and wiped her mouth. "I trained longer than they've been alive," she answered. Leanne frowned. "But those Vortons, they trained in simulated combat. For years, against smart enemies." Raina shook her head. "They trained to win fast, not to survive slow." In the Vorton command tent, new orders were given. "Use numbers," Commander Rawl growled. "She can't shoot all of us." Squad of 20 was selected. They were told to spread wide, to move fast, to overwhelm. One shot. One soldier. It couldn't beat many at once, or so they thought. The squad advanced. They didn't walk in a line. They ran at angles. Jumped from cover to cover. Their AI systems marked Raina's position. Red indicators blinked over her head. She stood up. From behind the rock, the rifle rose again. The Vorton screamed and charged. Crack. The first one fell mid-sprint. He didn't scream. His body just dropped. The others didn't stop. Click-clack, crack. Another down. 18 left. She moved slightly left, knees bent. Focus, sharp crack. 17, the rest finally reached cover. But Raina was already on the move. She didn't stay in one place like their drones expected. She moved like a ghost, low, quiet, and deadly. Inside the Vorton control ship, a young tactical AI gave a warning. Pattern detected. Enemy kill rate, 1 per shot. Projected outcome. Entire squad eliminated in 23 seconds. A commander. Rawl's voice cracked. Override. Use swarm units confirmed. Deploying, dozens of small flying drones buzzed into the air. Fast, agile, armed. They scanned the area, no trace of her heat, no sound, nothing. Then one by one they began to fall from the sky, not from hacking, not from lasers, from bullets. Small holes. Straight through the central processors. Each one aimed by hand, each one shot by Captain Raina Holt. The squad finally stopped advancing. One of them dropped his weapon. Another took off his helmet and raised his hands. They didn't want to die anymore. They just wanted to live. The battlefield was frozen again. Humans watched from their side, stunned. No one cheered. No one clapped because it didn't feel like a win. It felt like a warning. General Pierce was watching everything through satellite feed. His officers stood in silence. One of them finally asked, "Sir, why didn't we send more like her?" Pierce turned. "We didn't need more," he said. "We only needed one." The galaxy responded fast. News networks replayed the footage endlessly. One human, one bullet, one kill. Over and over again, viewers across planets couldn't believe it. "She fights like the old ones," an old Martian soldier whispered. "She's not using war, is using fear," a Zaran diplomat said. And on a commercial spaceport, a child asked his father, "Why do they keep falling when she shoots?" His father answered, "Because she doesn't miss." Back in the human base, Raina finally cleaned her rifle again. Carefully, slowly, with respect Private Lean watched her. "You never talk about the rifle itself?" said. Raina looked at the weapon and nodded. "It's just a tool," she replied. "But it's powerful," he said. She shook her head. "No, it's simple, but it listens when I speak." Lean didn't understand, but maybe that was the point. Commander Roll stared out at the field. His army, once proud, was now half broken. He didn't order another charge. He didn't plan another attack, because every time one of his soldiers stood up, they didn't stand again. Inside the cold metal walls of the Vorten science cruiser, a long black table waited on top of it, locked in a containment field, was the human rifle. It looked simple. A wooden stock, a steel barrel, and a bolt that moved by hand. No glowing parts, no sound, no energy. But it had done the unthinkable. This one rifle had killed more Vorten soldiers in one day than a full squad of modern weapons had in a week. Now, every top Vorten scientist and engineer stood around it. They didn't laugh. They didn't speak. They scanned and they scanned again. But the results made no sense. "Where's the power source?" one engineer asked. "There isn't one," said another, staring at the datapad. "What's the core processor?" someone else asked. "There is no processor," came the reply. "Then where's the weapon system? The heat coils, the magnetic chamber?" All answers came back the same. None. The rifle had no AI, no sensors, no targeting programs, no energy cell, no heat source, no signal to their scanners. It was dead. But in battle, it had been more alive than any of their machines. Commander Roll walked into the lab. The room fell silent. He walked up to the rifle and stared at it. "It doesn't even look dangerous," said one scientist. Stepped forward nervously. "Sir, we believe the weapon is entirely analog. Old technology, very, very old." Rawl didn't blink. "Then why did it cut through our strongest armor like paper?" The scientist hesitated. "Because it used physics, pure kinetic energy, dense metal object, high velocity, shields. Can block that without being fully solid?" Rawl frowned. "Then make the shield solid." "I can't, sir," another replied. "A solid shield would block our own shots too. We'd be blind." "Useless in battle," Rawl growled. "You're telling me a human with a wooden stick broke the laws of war?" The scientists said nothing, but their faces said everything. On the human side, Raina was sitting on a supply crate, cleaning her rifle again. Carefully, slowly, respectfully, Private Lean approached, holding a communication tablet. "Ma'am," he said, "the Vortens recovered one of your old rifles from the field. They're trying to study it." Raina didn't look up. "Let them." Leon nodded, then hesitated. "Aren't you worried they might copy it?" Raina smiled. "Just a little. They can copy the weapon. No, but they can't copy the hand that fires it." In the lab, the Vortens used every method they knew. Heat mapping, X-ray scans, magnetic imaging, material sampling. One scientist ran his finger along the rifle's wooden stock. This is organic," he whispered. The others stared. "Part of this weapon is grown from a tree." "Yes," said another. "A real tree. On Earth. A kind called walnut. Very dense. Very strong." They stared at the wood like it was an alien object. And in a way, it was to them nothing was made without machines, without factories, without lasers. But this weapon was handcrafted, hammered, oiled, passed down, and it had killed machines they thought were invincible. "Commander," Rawl turned to the head of the research unit. "Can we duplicate it?" The scientist looked down. "Yes, we can build something similar, but," Rawl said sharply. "But," the scientist continued, "our soldiers won't know how to use it. It doesn't aim for you. It doesn't autocorrect. Doesn't fire unless you do everything right. Means if you pull the trigger too fast, you miss. If you aim wrong, you miss. If you flinch, you miss."
Rawl's hands
curled into fists. "Our people don't miss,"
sir.
the scientist said quietly. But they also don't train like humans did. Not without AI, not without programs, not without guidance. Well, and she does, Rawl asked. The scientist nodded slowly. Well, she is the weapon.
Us.
Across the galaxy, military advisors from other species listened in on the Vorton report. Ah, a transmission. Leaked, it was short but terrifying. The human weapon has no AI, no link, no logic core. It is a tool. The killer is the human, and she is trained to kill without help. The galaxy reacted. On the planet Zaver, an army general canceled his next training session. On the Rim colonies, a commander ordered research into human physical combat. And on Earth, they simply smiled. They had expected this reaction. Reyna sat near the fire that night. Her rifle rested beside her, wrapped in cloth. Privately sat across from her again. Ma'am, may I ask something? She nodded. Why do? You still use that rifle? We have better weapons. Faster ones. Reyna looked into the fire. Better, she said softly. Better means easier. Easier means softer. Softer means dead. And didn't know how to answer. Reyna continued. When you don't rely on machines, you start relying on yourself. And when you trust your own hands, nothing can stop you. Back on the Vorton ship, Commander Roll stared at the rifle locked inside the containment field. He hated it, not because it was deadly, but because it made him feel weak. This old thing had no glow, no engine, no mind, but somehow it had broken. He turned to his guards. Seal it, he said. Put it behind blast glass. Mark it classified. Sir? The guard asked. It's not a weapon, Rawl said, walking away. It's a warning. Captain Reyna Holt wasn't on any main roster. She wasn't part of the standard Earth military force. And when her name first came up for deployment, the Galactic Council didn't even recognize it. She wasn't a general, not a politician's favorite, not part of the newer Cyber elite. So why was she on Drexen for? Why was she chosen to face the Vorton Empire? Because Earth was tired of being underestimated, and Reyna Holt was the answer. 1 week before the battle, deep under Earth's Central Defense Station, a quiet meeting took place. General Pierce stood at the edge of a long, dark table. Around him were Earth's most powerful leaders, military minds, intelligence heads, and a few people whose names had been erased from public records. They think we're soft, Pierce said. No one replied. They didn't need to. They see our digital weapons, our fleets, our drones. They think we've forgotten how to bleed. He paused, looking at a single file on the table. They think we became weak because we stopped using rifles made by hand, because we stopped teaching soldiers how to shoot without help. He tapped the file. We'll remind them. The room stayed silent as the name on the file appeared in holographic light. Reyna Holt. Project Last Shot Traina never asked for attention. She never applied for any award. She was a legacy soldier. Her great-grandmother had served in Earth's last ground war. Her grandfather trained soldiers in survival. Real survival. Not VR. Not labs. Reyna trained the old way. In forests. In storms. In silence. No drone covered her. No helmet spoke to her. Every shot she fired, she earned. Private Lean couldn't. Sleep. He walked to the edge of the human camp and found Reyna awake, sitting on a low rock, eyes toward the stars. He sat beside her slowly. She didn't stop him. You knew you'd be sent, he said. No, Reyna replied. I was called. There's a difference. Lean looked confused. But why you? Why not a mech unit or a plasma squad? Reyna looked at the sky again. Because Earth didn't want to win with noise, she said. It wanted to win with clarity. Lean tilted his head. Clarity. Reyna nodded. They wanted the galaxy to see one human, one rifle, one result. On the Vorton side, Commander Rowell was still trying to make sense of her. Where did they find her? He shouted. Why wasn't she in any military files? Nervous officer replied. She was listed as inactive. Reserved under Project Last Shot. Roll frowned.
Oh, what's that?
The officer showed him the decrypted report. Project Last Shot. a list of Earth's most skilled analog-trained soldiers. No implants, no enhancements, no AI dependence. Used only when a message needs to be delivered, not just a war to be won, Commander. Raul read the file again. His hands trembled. This wasn't about the battle, he whispered. It was about the audience. Back on Earth, public news channels still didn't show Reyna's face. They didn't show her rifle, but military leaders across every system had already seen the footage. Not the cleaned-up broadcast. The real feed, unedited. One shot. One soldier. No support. No mercy. It wasn't just a victory. It was a warning in the shape of a human. Reyna walked through the quiet battlefield the next morning. Dust clung to her coat. Her rifle rested across her shoulder. She was alone, or so it seemed. Above her, far in orbit, over 200 different ships from neutral planets were recording everything. No one attacked. No one interfered. They all watched. They had seen what the Vortons refused to believe, that Earth hadn't. Fallen behind, it had just waited. Private Lean followed her, confused. "Are we still fighting?" he asked. "No," Reyna said softly. "Then why are we here?" She looked at him, to be seen. In the Vorton capital, emergency meetings began. A senior advisor shouted, "This one human killed morale in 3 sectors. Soldiers are refusing to face her." Another screamed, "She's just one woman." One shouted back, "No," came the reply. "She's a signal." Back at the Human Command Center, General Pierce received a coded message from the United Council of Sectors. "Wish to open peace talks." Read the second part carefully. "Please do not send her again." He smiled quietly. That meant they understood. Later that evening, Reyna returned to base. She laid her rifle in a padded box. Not locked, not sealed. Just resting, Private Lean watched silently. He finally asked, "Will you ever use it again?" Answered without looking up, "Only if they forget." The next morning, Earth's War Council sent out a short, simple message to all systems. If you still believe strength only comes from machines, just know the last shot hasn't been fired yet. The battlefield was quiet now. No sounds of plasma. No screaming engines. No shouting commanders. Just silence. And in that silence stood Reyna Holt. Her rifle was not raised. Her boots were coated in the gray dust of Drexen 4. Her eyes looked combat. Behind them was something the galaxy hadn't seen in a long time. Human intent. Everyone who had watched her fight remembered the same thing. She didn't shoot to destroy equipment. She didn't shoot to wound. She didn't even shoot to intimidate. She shot to end. Each bullet she fired had purpose. Each kill was chosen, calculated, personal. A few alien soldiers who survived tried to explain the fear they felt. One Vorton officer stammered during interrogation. It was like, "She wasn't killing a body. She was killing the idea of us winning." His voice cracked. It felt like we were being erased. Slowly with each shot, even the Galactic Academy paused their military training programs. One instructor, an old Zithran commander, said quietly to his students, "Forget lasers. Forget drones. Study. Focus." That human woman, she didn't just aim at targets. She aimed at morale. Back on Earth, the footage went viral. But not the official version. Leaked raw footage showed every moment of her walking forward with that old weapon. It showed soldiers refusing to shoot her. It showed enemy commanders dropping their weapons and surrendering. After watching only one shot, the video was titled, "The Woman with the Rifle." Every step was a statement. It hit 1 billion views in 2 hours. Even planets neutral in the war were now talking, in the Vorton capital. Leaders argued endlessly. "She didn't destroy any tanks," one shouted. "She didn't need to," another replied. "She destroyed willpower." A strange new problem began to appear across Vorton outposts. Troops were refusing orders, not out of cowardice, but out of fear that she might show up. Some soldiers even abandoned their posts the moment they saw a single human step onto the field. Any human. "She might be here," they whispered. "What if she's watching us now?" And perhaps that was Earth's plan all along. Not to fight in every system, but to plant a seed of fear so deep That even when Raina Holt wasn't there, her presence was. Meanwhile, on Drexenfor, Raina remained at the base, quiet, unshaken. Private Lean sat across from her during breakfast. "Ma'am," said, "they say you didn't just kill soldiers out there." She looked up. He continued, "They say you killed their courage." Raina nodded slowly. Fear spreads faster than bullets. The next day, a group of Vorton prisoners were interviewed. One of them, a high-ranking strategist, had tears in his eyes. He said, "She wasn't fast, she wasn't glowing like their mechs. But when she looked at me from across the field, I couldn't move. My legs refused. That's not a soldier. That's a lesson." Galactic journalists started calling her the walking message, the last rifle, the shot that echoed. But Raina didn't care for names. She cleaned her weapon each morning. She trained like before. When asked about the fame, she only said one thing: let them keep talking. Talking means they're not fighting. In the Galactic Council chambers, species once hostile to Earth now spoke in softer tones. A Galax ambassador stood and said, "I voted for war. I thought humans were soft. I saw one soldier change that in 30 minutes. I vote for peace now." Others nodded back on the battlefield ruins. Drones recorded messages carved into the armor of fallen enemy commanders. One message read, "If she looks at you, drop your weapon." Another simply said, "The museum piece works." But perhaps the most chilling evidence of her effect came from a Vorton soldier's personal log, found days later in a wrecked ship. It read, "I saw her shoot my captain. He dropped just like that. He had 5 guards. She didn't flinch. She reloaded slowly, like time didn't exist. I hid. Not because I'm weak, but because she wasn't shooting to win. She was shooting to remind us. Remind us that humans don't forget war. They just store it away until it's needed." General Pierce received an encrypted message that night from an unknown source. It simply said, "Whatever she is, send her again. We understand now. We all understand." He smiled, leaning back in his chair. Earth didn't want to destroy systems. They just wanted to be heard. And Raina's rifle spoke louder than any fleet ever could. The war didn't end with an explosion. It ended with a silence so heavy it could be felt across systems. No surrender treaty was signed. No flag was raised. But ships stopped flying. Commands stopped shouting, and soldiers stopped showing up. Because one human woman with an old rifle had done what entire fleets could not. She made the galaxy sit down, back on Earth. A grand hall was prepared, not for a parade, not for medals, but for one object. A black case made of neutron titanium rested in the center. Behind glass more secure than any prison vault, it stood the rifle. Raina Holt stood quietly as engineers placed the weapon inside. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just looked, thoughtful. One Earth general stepped forward. "Captain Holt, is there anything you'd like to place with it?" She nodded once and pulled something from her jacket. A small paper card. She slipped it into the case beside the rifle. The general leaned forward to read it. It said, "Still loaded." That simple note shook the entire room. No threats. No boasting. Just a warning. And across the stars, the message spread like wildfire. On Kresner 9, a Vorton school added a new chapter to their history lessons. The human rifle. The day technology was defeated by will. In the Zor archives, a warning was posted on all future tactical analysis reports. Do not underestimate ancient human tech or single-unit psychological warfare. And in several war rooms, Earth's name was removed from invasion plans permanently. Back. On Earth, Raina returned to her quiet life. No interviews, no documentaries. She walked the same street she had left. Sometimes children recognized her. One little girl ran up and said, "Did you really fight with that old thing?" Raina knelt down and smiled softly. "It's not the weapon," she said. "It's the hand holding it." One day, a reporter managed to reach her. "Captain Holt, one question," he begged. "Why that rifle? Why not use our best tech?" She looked at him, her voice calm. because they understand power. But they forgot fear. Months passed, then years, and one day, a high-ranking alien ambassador visited Earth under full protection. He didn't ask to meet the president. He didn't ask to meet military leaders. He asked to see the case. Security. Add him to the vault. He stood in front of the glass, staring, no movement, no noise. Then he asked a strange question. Is it really still loaded? The security officer shrugged. We've never opened the case. The ambassador backed away slowly. In the following years, Earth never needed to fire another bullet because the idea of that rifle did all the work. New military recruits studied it in simulations. Enemy forces trained with one command in mind. If she shows up, retreat. The rifle was now more than a weapon. It was a symbol. Alien species from all corners sent gifts to Earth not out of kindness, but out of respect, peace treaties, trade. Deals, new alliances, but not a single threat, because every threat carried the same risk, that Reyna might return one day. A Vorten child asked her elder, "Why are we friends with humans now?" The elder paused, then smiled. "Because we saw what one human with one bullet could do." In secret bunkers, some alien generals would gather in quiet rooms and say, "The worst part is, she only fired 7 times. One would whisper, "What if she had fired 8? Many years later, long after Reyna Holt passed away, the Earth Council decided to open the vault. Cameras, security, diplomats, historians all present. They removed the case's outer lock, unsealed the chamber inside. The rifle lay untouched, and beside it the paper noted. But still there, a technician gently opened the bolt on the rifle. He looked up, face pale. "It's loaded," he said. "Round in chamber, safety off." Gasps filled the room. Someone tried to laugh, but it didn't feel funny. It felt like a message still alive. The case was resealed, and a new metal plate was added outside. It said, "This rifle ended a war, without needing to fire again." Even now, in corners of the galaxy where humans rarely go, the story is whispered. They laughed at her weapon, but they never laughed again.